Today we're talking about how to start an LLC in New Jersey, and what you can see behind me here is a guided document that has checklists for you of going through this process. But before we get into the checklist of starting the LLC, what I want to do is talk about how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. What that is when you get your LLC set up, you think you're all set to go, but maybe there were things that were done incorrectly when you're setting it up, or you're not maintaining it properly, and it creates cracks in your LLC. And then you could be putting yourself on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars in liability down the line because you didn't take the simple steps in the beginning. So what we're going to do here in this video is we're going to familiarize you with terms such as piercing the corporate veil, registered agents, commingling funds, pass-through taxation, how the LLC renewal process works, and also business licenses and permits. Now, to better understand all these things here, what you need to do is actually understand what an LLC actually does for your business, and that's what we're going to cover right now in this video. Now, if we open up this right here, what we're going to do here is talk about the fact that a limited liability company offers limited liability protection. That's why you get it set up. But it also offers pass-through taxation. To best explain this, why don't we talk about owning a coffee shop without an LLC? Now what you can see here is that the business owner is on the left-hand side with their personal assets, and then we have what's called Acme Coffee LLC over here, and the LLC owns all of those assets within the business. This red division in the middle, that line is called the corporate veil. What that is it creates a division between your personal and business assets. Now, you remember at the beginning of this video, we talked about a term called piercing the corporate veil. Well, why don't we explain that right now? Now, let's say you have the unfortunate situation where you have this hypothetical coffee shop, but somebody gets hurt there and they sue your business. They hire an attorney. What that attorney is going to do is try to find cracks in your LLC so that they can erase this red division between your personal and business assets. So when they sue you, they can come after your business assets, but also your personal assets as well. That's why getting your LLC set up, but also knowing all these things is really important in part of the process of owning an LLC. Now, earlier we also talked about commingling funds. I want to explain that really quick because as you can see, we have a personal bank account and a business bank account here. I always recommend that as soon as you get your business set up, you want to get a business bank account, because if you end up running transactions for your business, but through your personal bank account, that is what commingling funds is. And then again, this is a crack in your LLC so that they can potentially come after your personal assets as well. So always a good idea to get that business bank account set up as soon as possible. Now, what I'd like to quickly explain right now is pass-through taxation, because this is obviously going to come up at tax time. And a lot of people don't understand what an LLC is as far as taxes and how they relate to each other. Well, an LLC you don't set up for tax purposes. You set it up for limiting your liability. It is a pass-through taxation entity. Now, what that means is, let's say that Acme Coffee grossed $140,000 and they had expenses of $90,000. That would create a net income of $50,000. The IRS is not taxing the LLC. What happens is that $50,000 passes through, it's also called flow-through taxation. It flows through to the business owner, and the IRS is taxing the business owner. So I just wanted you to be aware that when it comes to tax time, you shouldn't expect like this separate thing for your LLC to happen. But in the future, what you can do is you can change the tax election for your LLC to an S corporation to save on taxes. We're going to be talking about that later in this video series. Yes, this is a video series, and I highly suggest you watch all of them because, again, you're going to have a full picture of what it is your LLC can do for you and how to maintain it as well. Now, what I want to do now is get into the checklist of starting your LLC. Now, before we get started, what I do want to say is that you can get this checklist for yourself and also explore the bonuses and glossary area. So this is a Notion doc. There's going to be a QR code on the screen that you can scan, or there is a link in the description below to grab this for yourself. It's free. So in the bonuses section here, you can see there's an AI chatbot, and this is pretty cool because you can ask this any kind of questions like how to start an LLC in New Jersey. And I didn't even spell everything correctly, but it can still figure it out and be able to give you a detailed list of the steps involved with starting your LLC. But if you have questions like how do I register an EIN, which we're going to explain later in this video, this will be able to populate that information for you as well. Just a cool little helpful tool for you. Later in the next video, we're going to talk about a free charitable opportunity when you're getting set up with your LLC. This yearly accounting calendar, super helpful just for understanding important accounting dates. And then also a way to get free CPA advice and future tax savings, which we're going to talk about, which is that S Corp designation. So let's now get started with deciding which route you want to go when you get your LLC set up. Do you want to go with the state website? Do you want to go with an online LLC service? I'm going to write online in here just for our own sake. so we can differentiate? Or do you want to go through a business attorney? We're going to be covering all this in a lot of detail in the next video in the series, which is different options for LLC formation. But I want to give you a 30,000 foot view of the way to think about these different options right now. When you go through the state website, the advantage is that there aren't a lot of upsells. There may be an upsell just for expedited processing time, but they're not going to pitch you on like business banking services or website, services or business insurance and all those kinds of things. But the downside is they don't offer these services for you. We're going to be talking about registered agent in a little bit and how they kind of breeze over that, but it's a really important part of your LLC. And they also don't help you with anything on the federal or local level as well. It's a pretty limited menu when you're going through the state website. Now, when you go through an online LLC service, there's lots of features and services available to you, but there's also a lot of upsells and those come with a cost. So we're going to be breaking those down as well. And then a business attorney really comes in is if you have a more complex situation, and it really comes down to questions you need to ask yourself when you're getting set up with your LLC if you should be talking to a business attorney. So what I want to do now though is we're going to walk through this example, and we're going to be using the state website of what it looks like as far as filing your articles of organization. Before you do that though, you're going to need to decide on a business name for your LLC. First thing I'll say is that a lot of people blow this out of proportion. Like, you don't need the perfect name for your LLC, because your LLC could just be like your name, or maybe it's like Acme Coffee LLC. But underneath that, you can have a fictitious name, or also called the DBA, doing business as. And then that can be the brand name for your business. So maybe it's like Espresso Yourself, cafe or coffee or whatever, right? So don't feel like you got to get the perfect name. You can also have a brand name that exists underneath that LLC. Now, once you have a name set up, and I suggest going to like ChatGPT, use AI tools to help you brainstorm. It's super helpful. What you can do is search availability of your business name. There's a state directory list here. When we click on this and then we scroll down to New Jersey, what it's going to do is it's going to pop open this right here. Now, in New Jersey, if you're to, call it the Devils, right? Because you have the New Jersey Devils already, there's probably going to be a lot of business names related to that because of that, right? So there's a ton of things here. It's very unlikely you're going to find that unique name. But if I was to just kind of hammer on the keyboard here and then do a search, you can see this green bar here. That is what you're looking for when you're searching for your name within the state database, okay? You want to just make sure that you have, there are no other names that are taken just like that. You have a unique name. So then once you have a unique name, what you can do is start forming your LLC. The first step here is really a half step you don't necessarily have to do. You can also just do this within the Articles of Organization, but you can register your LLC name. Now, the difference between registering your LLC and then filing your Articles of Organization down here is basically like, let's say you want to set up a website and you're like, I don't have the time or resources yet to set up the actual website, but I want to own the domain. I want to make sure I get that domain. That's what you're doing when you're registering your LLC name, is just making sure that you can obtain that name. But then what you can do is write your Articles of Organization and file your Articles of Organization, which requires a fee. Now, there's another link here, a state directory. And what we're going to do is go down to New Jersey. And this list right here kind of highlights what's in the Articles of Organization. But we're going to look at the actual New Jersey Articles of Organization to get a better idea. So what you can see here is Article 1 is just the name. Article 2 is duration, which if you're planning on having this business forever, you can put in perpetual. Article 3, purpose for which this company is organized. And then Article 4, I really want to highlight here, which is the registered agent. Now, this is what's kind of like a bummer with these state websites and their Articles of Organization, is they don't explain this for you, right? So what a registered agent is a third-party service that handles important communication and documentation for your business. Now, let's go back to the coffee shop example. Let's say that person that got hurt and they're trying to sue you. Well, your registered agent is going to be taking that documentation in. They're going to be serving you that service of process notice, which is basically, hey, you need to show up in court. Here's the documents you need. They help you through these situations. But what they also do is they help to create a little bit of distance between you and your business. That's because your registered agent is going to be in the state database. So if you have a professional registered agent, that is not your home address or your personal information out there. The two things about the registered agent is they have to have a physical address in New Jersey, and number two is it can't be a PO box. What I recommend is to get a professional registered agent service, and in the next video, we're actually going to talk about different services out there that can provide this for free for the first year. But it's just a good idea to help you dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure you don't have cracks in your LLC as you're moving forward. Now, as you can see, the principal office and mailing address, your members, your management team. capital contributions, and then additional contributions. And it can kind of get a little confusing because you're like, well, I'm not sure like what to put here. This is where if you go through an online LLC service, it's going to guide you through all of those steps. And it gets a little bit more confusing when you're using the state website. Even if you use their online portal, it's just not really well designed, but you can go through the state website if you prefer that as well. So once you assign your registered agent, and then what you can do is create and sign an LLC operating agreement. Now, this is not required in the state of New Jersey as I'm making this video in 2024, but it could be in the future. But right now, there's only 5 states that require it. Now, what the operating agreement is you spell out who the members of the LLC are, what are their roles and responsibilities, but it's a document that I always say is like kind of like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, the reason for that is, let's say that you have a business partner and you guys decide to start like opening a ton of these coffee shops and you have like 15 of them. Now, it's 6 years down the road and your partner is like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm out. How do you handle that situation? If it's not spelled out in the operating agreement, what's going to happen is you're going to get into a lengthy litigation process and it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees to figure this information out. So that's why the operating agreement is really helpful, especially if you have a partner. Once you do get that set up, and I will say the online tools, they have boilerplates for this. If you go through a business attorney, they'll actually talk to you and figure out your specifics there and give you a really dialed in one. But of course, that's going to be the most expensive route going through an attorney. Now, after the LLC formation, you want to consider setting up your EIN. There's an IRS link here. And then this link is really helpful because what it does is it explains what the employer identification number is. But basically what it is a social security number for your business. It helps the IRS identify your business. And if you're going to have employees on payroll, you have to have an EIN. And it also helps because like when you're setting up your business banking account or your business insurance or applying for a loan, these types of things, many times they'll ask you for an EIN, sometimes a social security number, but having that EIN that you can put in place is really great to be able to legitimize your business in the eyes of the people that you're doing business with. So I always suggest to get that set up right away. And if you go directly through the IRS website, it's free to do that. These online legal tools, the LLC Services, they will do it for you as well for an additional fee if you don't want to set that up yourself. Now we have obtain business licenses and permits for your LLC. Really helpful resource here from the SBA, worth looking into. And it's actually got a cool little drop-down area where you can look up your state and see any additional information there. But what I want to do is just kind of break this down with an example again. Let's say that you were opening up a brewery, and when you do that, you're going to be making beer, distributing beer, and perhaps you're serving beer at the location. Well, those may require different licenses and permits, and that can happen on the federal level, on the state level, and on the local government level, all right? So on the local level, it could be your own town. Like they may have certain licenses or permits that are required to do business there. So I just wanted to make you aware of that once you get your LLC set up, there is still this additional step. Not every business is going to require a license or permit, but if you're doing something like chiropractic or a construction company, a brewery, those types of things, it's kind of obvious that you're going to need those additional licenses and permits. So that's the basics of setting your LLC up in New Jersey. But what I want to get to in the next video is explore the different options available to you with the online tools, your state website, and attorney. We're going to get into the fees associated with setting up your LLC. There's actually an embedded cost calculator that'll show you down to the dollar what it's going to cost you in year 5 of owning your LLC in New Jersey. And you can actually enter New Jersey into that calculator. We're going to get into these star ratings and what the differences are and where these come from when you're comparing these different services. We're also going to talk about why state websites can become a pain, and it has to do with domestic versus foreign LLCs, which will be explained in the next video, and then also questions worth asking. And this is specifically geared towards if you should hire a business attorney. So you'll see that video up on the screen here, so I highly suggest you check that out and join us inside of the Notion doc by using the link in the description below. All right, I'll catch you in that next video.